the U.S. provides from $15 to $20 million for so-called democracy programs in Cuba. They traditionally have been administered by USAID. This money seems to go on all the time, no matter how much you have to cut for real USAID work in humanitarian matters. It's the same program that got Alan Gross arrested. He's in his fifth year of a 15-year sentence, which his health and his age is basically a death sentence. Last week he began a hunger strike because he's given up waiting for any kind of a sign by this administration. They're doing anything meaningful to get him out. According to a recent Associated Press report, between 2009 and 2012, USAID funded a program named Zunzaneo. They used personal data obtained overseas, secret bank accounts, shell company, to support cell phone access for Cubans who had no idea it was funded by the U.S. government. The irony being, if we didn't have the embargo we have, we probably would have had 10 legitimate American companies down there vying for the ability to sell cell phones and internet access. Whose idea was it to undertake this program in this manner, through this secret? Well, whose idea was it?
Senator Leahy, first thank you for your question. Let me address Alan Gross first. We believe...
First answer the question, whose idea was this?
The program was designed in 2007 and 2008 at that time frame. That said, the legislation that crafts the purpose of the program...
No, whose idea was it for this specific program? I've read the legislation. The legislation doesn't say anything about setting up a cockamamie idea in Cuba with Twitter accounts and all on something that the Cubans would be so easy to discover. Whose idea was this specific program to go to Cuba? Who? It's a simple question.
Sir, the program was in place before I arrived.
Do you know whose idea it was? I know it was in place before, and I said that in my opening statement before you arrived, but do you know whose idea it was?
Well, first let me say, and I think this is important, sir, and I greatly respect your point of view, but that AP story had a number of critical inaccuracies.
I've read USAID's thing, and I'll put that in the record. I'll tell you what, I'll put in the record both your response to the AP story and the AP story.
Okay.
Having said that, do you know whose idea it was?
I do not specifically, but I will say this, that working on creating platforms to improve communication in Cuba and in many other parts of the world is a core part of what USAID has done for some time and continues to do. Our administration's policy is to continue to support efforts to allow for open communications. To the extent that the AP story or any other comment creates the impression that this effort or any other goes beyond that for other ulterior purposes, that is simply inaccurate.
Was it a covert program?
Absolutely not. It was conducted.
And was anyone at the U.S. Interest Section of the Department of State of the White House aware of the facts of this program?
This program has been notified publicly in congressional budget justifications dating back to 2008.
I've read those.
CNs.
When I talked about bureaucraties, if you could figure out that it meant this, you're doing a lot better job than most of us. Now, Alan Gross...
Well, sir, may I speak to that? The notifications point out that we are working to increase the free flow of information and support civil society engagement using new technology. They specifically highlight work to reduce internet restrictions to information. They highlight using new digital methods to increase information flow in and out of the island. And they talk about work on internet freedom. More detailed conversations took place at staff briefings.
And we spent millions of dollars, for example, on the Marti program, even though it's made a lot of people wealthy, but it hasn't done much of any good whatsoever. But it makes people feel good to spend the money. Let me ask you this. Alan Gross, I still have time. Alan Gross was arrested in December 2009. Did USAID consider what the possible discovery of this program, which USAID knew about, if the Cuban government discovered it, did anybody consider what that might have meant for Alan Gross?
Look, Alan's detention is wrong. The responsibility for his detention rests with Cuban authorities. And our administration has worked, and since you mentioned it, I should highlight that the State Department has led an aggressive effort to help Alan secure his release. And specifically, Undersecretary Sherman has worked this issue hard, and at the highest levels it's been addressed.
I've seen some nice press releases, but I've not seen any steps that actually get him out.
We can share that with you in a private setting. I'm sure she would be eager to do that, because I know there's been a lot of focused work on behalf of the Gross family, whom we think about and care about deeply.
Did you, in the program that Alan Gross was sent down there to carry out, did USAID consider the fact that if he was discovered in that program, that he'd be arrested? Was that ever a consideration of USAID?
Yes, these programs are conducted more discreetly, precisely because of a recognition that providing internet access in an authoritarian environment exposes partners to certain risks.
You know that you have USAID people who are doing wonderful things that you and I would applaud all over the world, many at great risk themselves because of the area they're in, and they are constantly faced with the thing, well, you're not here to help us, you're really a spy. And they have to say, well, no, we don't work for the CIA, we work for USAID. Did you not worry that having a USAID employee do this thing, something that anybody who has any knowledge of how the Cuban secret police and informants and all work, that he's going to be discovered, doesn't that taint all USAID employees around the world as spies? I mean, we're already getting emails from USAID employees all over the world, current and past, saying, how could they do this and put us in such danger?
Sir, we support civil society. We support and implement the FY14 appropriations language that directs us to improve access to information and internet freedom in many parts of the world. We do it transparently and with public notifications. The fact that we're discussing it in this briefing highlights the reality that these are publicly notified programs.
What are some other countries where you do it openly?
There's literally around the world. And we've had efforts in Kenya to support the Yes Youth
Have they always been
movement of
done with
student
full
groups.
Has it always been done with full knowledge and support of our U.S. ambassadors in those countries in every instance?
That's the aspiration. And
is that the actuality?
I think for the major ones that I am most familiar with, absolutely. There are things we review. There are things that our embassy teams are more than aware of. And in fact, the Yes Youth Can program in Kenya is a great example. They can work. Sometimes they help lean and tip the scales towards protection of communities and rights, allowing people to gain access, promoting democratic transitions from one administration to the next, supporting safe participation in elections. And we've seen it time and time again. They don't always work, and I'll be the first to admit that, but often they do.
This one from the get-go had no possibility of working. That's my problem with it.